I found 47,000 messages on his phone. 47,000 tiny betrayals I didn't see coming. Each one sent by the person who stood beside me when I said, "I do." The night I discovered them, I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, staring at the screen, realizing that love doesn't die loudly, it bleeds out quietly, one secret at a time. But the worst part wasn't the lies. It wasn't even him. It was her. My best friend, the woman who held my hand through every heartbreak, who I trusted with every piece of my life. If you've ever looked at someone you loved and realized they'd been writing your heartbreak behind your back, stay until the end of my story. And if it moves you, subscribe for more stories like mine. My name is Elena Brooks, and I'm 34 years old. I live in a small coastal town now, the kind of place where mornings smell like salt and coffee, and silence feels like safety, not punishment. It's been 2 years since that night, the night I found 47,000 messages that rewrote my entire history. These days, I spend my time writing for a living, documenting stories of women who survive the kind of heartbreak that doesn't bruise the skin but leaves scars on the soul. I suppose that's my way of giving pain a purpose. When people meet me now, they see calm. They see control. They don't see the version of me that once believed love could heal anything. They don't see the woman who begged for answers that never came. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the echo of her laughter, my best friend's, in my head. It's strange how betrayal can sound like the person you miss most. But this story isn't about pity. It's about rebirth. Because what broke me also taught me who I am without everyone else's expectations weighing me down. And to understand how I got here, how I went from shattered to steady, you need to know what came before that day. I grew up in a house where silence was its own language, a way of avoiding truths that hurt too much to say out loud. My parents weren't cruel. They were simply weary people, surviving more than living. My father, a high school math teacher, believed emotions were messy and unnecessary. He measured love in grades, chores, and schedules. My mother was softer, but she lived in the shadows of keeping peace, always smoothing, never standing. Between them was my brother, Caleb, 2 years older and born golden. He had the easy charm that drew attention without effort. Where I was the quiet one, Caleb filled every room with laughter. He didn't mean to make me invisible, but he did. When I was 10, I won a city-wide poetry contest. I came home holding the certificate like it was proof that I mattered. My mother smiled and said she was proud, but she didn't hang it on the fridge. There wasn't space. Caleb's basketball photos were already there. That night, at dinner, Dad asked Caleb about his next game. I waited for someone to ask me about my poem. No one did. It wasn't anger that took root that night. It was something quieter, a feeling that I was easier to overlook than to love. That pattern continued through my teenage years. Caleb got the car first, even though I had the better grades. He got to skip curfew. I got lectures about responsibility. When he forgot chores, I was told to help him because you're the dependable one, Emma. Dependable. That word followed me like a collar I never learned to take off. When I left home for college at 18, I told myself I was finally free. But the thing about emotional habits is, you pack them even when you think you've left them behind. In my first semester, I met Nathan. He was a year older, a literature major who spoke softly but listened deeply. When he looked at me, it felt like I existed in full color. He didn't just see me, he noticed me. The small things, like how I tucked my hair when I was nervous or how my handwriting leaned left when I was tired. And then I met Hannah. She was my roommate, the kind of woman who seemed to live in motion. She'd dance barefoot in the kitchen, talk to strangers like they were old friends, and somehow make you feel like the most important person in the world when she looked at you. We became inseparable. We studied together, dreamed together, laughed until dawn. When I cried about my insecurities, she was the one who said, "Emma, you don't need to be small to be safe." And I believed her. Hannah became the sister I always wanted, the one who didn't compete, who didn't take. Or so I thought. Years later, when Nathan proposed, she was the first person I called. She helped me choose the ring, planned the bridal shower, and stood beside me at the altar, fixing my veil with trembling hands. "You deserve this kind of love," she whispered just before I walked down the aisle. I believed that, too. But love, I learned, can be a slow illusion, one that feels like safety until the cracks begin to show. Looking back, the signs were there. The inside jokes between Nathan and Hannah. The lingering glances I pretended not to notice. The way her texts would light up his phone late at night, followed by his casual, "It's just Hannah, she's going through something." And I'd nod, because I trusted them both more than I trusted myself. That's what happens when you grow up unseen. You confuse being needed with being loved. The first real betrayal wasn't their affair. It was me, betraying my own instincts, silencing the voice that whispered something wasn't right. By 28, my life looked perfect. A home with white curtains and framed smiles. A husband who brought me coffee every morning. A best friend who never missed a Sunday dinner. From the outside, I was the kind of woman people envied. Inside, I was a ghost of my own life. And one night, one ordinary, unremarkable night, that illusion shattered in the soft glow of a phone screen. It started on a Wednesday. Not a dramatic evening, not a stormy night, just a quiet, ordinary Wednesday where the hum of the dishwasher filled the silence between us. Nathan had gone to bed early, his phone left charging on the kitchen counter. It wasn't unusual. He often worked late and fell asleep before me. What was unusual was the constant buzzing. At first, I ignored it. Then the light blinked again. Once. Twice. A third time. Something inside me, small and sharp, urged me to look. I wish I could say I hesitated, that I tried to trust him. But truthfully, I already knew. My body knew before my mind did. When I opened his phone, I didn't expect to find that. Not 1 or 2 messages. Not even 100. 47,000. 47,000 messages, every one between Nathan and Hannah. Some were innocent, the kind that could pass for friendship. But as I scrolled, the words turned softer. More intimate. My name appeared occasionally, usually followed by a complaint, a joke, or worse, a comparison. She's so quiet, sometimes I forget she's even in the room. Emma always forgives so easily. It's like she wants to be hurt. I wish she'd be more like you. Every word was a knife I couldn't stop touching. I sat on the cold kitchen tile until dawn, scrolling through 1,000 tiny betrayals. By morning, I wasn't angry. I was hollow. When Nathan came downstairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes, I didn't say a word. I just turned the phone toward him. His face drained of color. Emma, don't, I said quietly. You've already said enough. He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. For once, I didn't fill the silence. I let him drown in it. That day, I packed a suitcase. No screaming, no begging, just silence, the kind I grew up in, but this time, it was mine. I moved into a small apartment near the city, a one-bedroom with peeling paint and thin walls. But it was the first place that felt like mine. I slept on a mattress on the floor for weeks, surrounded by boxes of half-packed memories. In the beginning, grief was physical. It lived in my bones. I'd wake up every morning and for a few seconds, forget. Then it would hit me again, like falling through ice. I quit my marketing job 2 months later. Everything there reminded me of them, of the campaigns Nathan and I once built together, of Hannah's voice on speakerphone. I couldn't bear the echo of their laughter. So, I started over. I built a small digital design studio out of my apartment. It began with freelance projects, late nights, and self-doubt. But slowly, I learned that creation could be therapy. I poured every piece of myself into colors, lines, and words, art that didn't ask for permission to exist. And somehow, the work started to find people. Clients came. The business grew. Freedom didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like waking up one day and realizing the air didn't hurt to breathe anymore. Then came Ethan. He was a client at first, a local bookstore owner who needed branding help. He had a way of speaking that made the world slow down, as if every sentence mattered. I wasn't ready for anything, but he never pushed. We met for coffee once a week to discuss projects, but those meetings turned into conversations about books, loss, and the strange way life rebuilds itself when you stop trying to control it. He didn't fix me. He didn't try to. He just saw me as I was, and somehow that was enough. It took me 2 years to feel steady again. 2 years to stop checking my phone at night. 2 years to stop expecting apologies that never came. I built routines. I built boundaries. And eventually, I built a quiet kind of happiness that didn't depend on anyone else. But life has a cruel sense of timing. Just when peace begins to feel natural, the past comes knocking. It was early spring when I got the message. A simple one-line email from Hannah. Emma, I really need to talk to you. It's urgent. I stared at the screen for a long time. My first instinct was to delete it. But curiosity, faint, dangerous curiosity, made me click. She wrote that Nathan had left her. That he'd taken the house, drained their joint account, and disappeared. She said she was lost and broken, and she didn't know who else to turn to. The irony was sharp enough to taste. I didn't respond that night. I closed my laptop, lit a candle, and sat in the quiet hum of my small apartment. The same silence that once haunted me now felt like armor. Part of me wanted to ignore her forever. But another part, the part that had spent a lifetime being the dependable one, wondered what kind of power lay in facing the person who'd burned your life down and watching them beg for the match. I looked around my apartment, at the art on the walls, the books stacked neatly, the photo of me and Ethan from the bookstore launch. I wasn't the same Emma she betrayed. And that's when I decided I'd meet her. Not for closure. Not for her. But for me. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about payback. It's about showing up as the person they thought you'd never become. It was strange how silence could feel louder than words. For weeks after discovering those 47,000 texts, I lived in that silence. It filled every corner of my new apartment, a small but bright space overlooking the city, the kind of view that made me believe, just a little, that I was moving upward. Nathan hadn't tried to contact me for months after I left. Maybe he was too ashamed, or maybe too comfortable in his new life with Hannah. I didn't care to know. I blocked them both, deleted the photos, the memories, the places. But healing isn't as clean as deleting a file. It lingers, reshapes itself, whispers in unexpected moments. Ethan had been patient. He never pushed, never asked for details. His kindness was so different from Nathan's charm. It wasn't performative. It was steady, unspoken, the kind that asked for nothing in return. For the first time, I felt seen, not used. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with an email that made my stomach drop. The subject line read, "Request for recommendation, Nathan Carter." I stared at it for a full minute before I even breathed. He had applied for a position at the company where I now worked, the same company I had joined 2 years earlier after clawing my way through self-doubt and late-night applications. I had rebuilt myself here. My team respected me. My work spoke for itself. And now he wanted in. Attached to the email was a polite note from HR. "Hi Emma, you previously managed Nathan Carter at Westbrook Interiors. We'd appreciate your insight on his character and leadership abilities." I laughed, a soft, humorless sound. Character and leadership. 2 words that didn't belong anywhere near Nathan Carter. For a moment, I thought about forwarding it to someone else, avoiding the confrontation. But something inside me stilled. For the first time in years, I had leverage. And I didn't need to raise my voice or seek revenge. The truth itself was enough. I wrote back. "Hi, thank you for reaching out. Nathan Carter is intelligent and persuasive, but I would urge you to verify his professional integrity carefully. My past experience with him was complicated by significant ethical concerns that directly affected my personal and professional boundaries. I believe in transparency, and I'd prefer to discuss this in person if needed. Regards, Emma Hayes." I didn't accuse. I didn't insult. I simply handed them the mirror and let them decide what they saw. Later that evening, I told Ethan what had happened. He didn't tell me what to do. He just looked at me and said, "Maybe this is the universe handing you the final word." 2 days later, HR scheduled a call. I sat in the small glass meeting room, calm and composed. They thanked me for my honesty. I shared the facts, not the emotions. I told him about his manipulative behavior at Westbrook, how he blurred lines between work and personal life, how he created chaos and then played the savior. I didn't mention Hannah. That wasn't needed. The truth had enough weight on its own. When the call ended, I felt something shift. It wasn't triumph, it was closure. But life, I've learned, loves symmetry. A week later, I saw Hannah's name light up on my phone for the first time in 2 years. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity, or maybe some buried sense of finality, made me swipe right. Emma. Her voice was small, hesitant. Yeah. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say something. Silence. Then, a breath. He ruined me too. The words caught me off guard. For a moment, I didn't respond. She rushed to fill the space. After you left, he moved in with me. Everything seemed perfect at first, like we were meant to be. But then it all started again. The lies, the control, the gaslighting. I thought I was special. I thought I was different. Her voice cracked. I wasn't. I closed my eyes. There was no satisfaction in hearing it, just a deep, quiet sadness. The cycle had come full circle. Hannah, I said softly, I don't hate you anymore. But I can't be your friend. I can't be anyone's savior. I understand, she whispered. I just wanted you to know you were right about him. When the call ended, I sat for a long time by the window. Outside, the city glowed, lights moving like constellations in motion. Ethan came over that night with takeout and a bottle of wine. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. 2 days later, word spread that Nathan's application had been rejected after the reference check. He tried to reach out, an email this time, polite and strangely formal. Emma, I didn't think you'd still hold a grudge. You've changed. I'm proud of your success. Truly. I hope someday you can forgive me. I stared at the screen. Forgiveness. It's funny how people ask for it when they don't understand what they've broken. I typed slowly, deliberately. Nathan, I did forgive you. That's why I'm not angry anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting who you are. I wish you peace, the kind you tried to take from me. Then I hit send. No fireworks. No drama. Just silence, the kind that closes a chapter. In that moment, I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't watching him fail. It was realizing I no longer cared if he did. The power I once gave him, my trust, my loyalty, my belief that love should hurt, I had taken all of it back. And I wasn't giving it away again. That night, I deleted his contact for the last time. Then I turned to Ethan, who was reading quietly beside me, and said, You know what's funny? I used to think closure came from confrontation. Turns out, it just comes from peace. He smiled. You finally got yours. And I had. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself or make a grand entrance. It just arrives quietly, like morning light slipping through curtains you forgot to close. That's how it felt in the months that followed. I woke up each day with a strange stillness in my chest, the kind that comes after you've cried everything dry. My life had stopped revolving around pain. It had started orbiting around purpose. I poured myself into work, but this time, it wasn't to prove anything. I led projects that uplifted young designers, people like me, who'd been told they weren't enough. I started mentoring interns, and one of them, a shy girl named Lila, reminded me a little of who I once was, eager, uncertain, and desperate for approval she didn't need to chase. One afternoon, she asked, How do you stay so calm, even when things go wrong? I smiled. Because I stopped needing everyone to like me. That night, I thought about how far I'd come. 4 years, I'd measured my worth through other people's eyes. My parents, Nathan, even Hannah. I'd twisted myself to be small enough to fit into their expectations. But healing had taught me something simple. Peace doesn't come from being loved by the right people. It comes from loving yourself enough not to need their approval. The universe, it seems, always circles back. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a creative leadership conference, a modest event, but one that meant everything to me. It was in the same city Nathan and I once called home. The irony didn't escape me. The morning of the talk, I stood before a mirror in my hotel room. My hair was shorter now, lighter, freer. The woman in the reflection wasn't someone broken or bitter. She was someone reborn through quiet fire. When I walked onto that stage, I saw rows of faces, hopeful, tired, curious. I began my talk not with a story of success, but of failure. I once thought love was supposed to save you, I said softly, the microphone catching the hush in my voice. But sometimes it destroys you first, so you can learn how to save yourself. People listened, really listened. And when the applause came at the end, it wasn't just for the words. It was for the resilience behind them, for the woman who had learned to turn pain into power. Afterward, as I was leaving the conference hall, a familiar figure stood near the exit. Nathan. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but spiritually, like someone who'd finally realized the cost of his own lies. He approached slowly, eyes searching mine. Emma, he said quietly. You were incredible up there. Thank you, I replied, calm and distant. I meant what I said in my email, he continued. I really do hope you're happy. I nodded. I am. He hesitated. I lost everything, you know. Hannah left. The firm went under. I don't even know who I am anymore. For a brief moment, the old version of me, the one who wanted to fix broken things, stirred inside. But she didn't speak. She'd learned her lesson. I hope you find out, I said softly. But it's not my job to help you anymore. He blinked, as if the words had struck something true. Then, without another word, he nodded and walked away, a man finally facing his own silence. As his figure disappeared into the crowd, I felt nothing but a calm, steady kind of release. There was no anger left, no bitterness, just closure. Later that night, I took a walk by the river. The city lights shimmered on the water, fractured and beautiful. I pulled out my phone, opened the old folder where I'd once saved screenshots of his texts with Hannah, the evidence I'd kept, maybe as proof that the pain was real. I hovered over the delete button for a moment. Then I pressed it. One by one, the files vanished until there was nothing left. Just me, the night, and the sound of water moving forward, exactly like life does. When I got home, Ethan was waiting with tea. I told him what had happened. He didn't say much. He just took my hand, thumb tracing lazy circles over my knuckles. You're finally free, he said quietly. I smiled. I think I always was. I just didn't know how to be. We sat like that for a long time, listening to the hum of the city, the small sounds that make up a peaceful life. Months later, Hannah sent me one last message. It wasn't an apology, not really. More like a confession. I've started therapy. You were right about everything. I hope someday we can talk again, not as friends, but as people who survived him. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some silences, I've learned, are kinder than words. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in years. Peace isn't a destination. It's the quiet you choose after the storm. It's knowing you don't need justice to feel whole. You just need to stop bleeding for people who never learned how to love. I closed the notebook and smiled. I used to think revenge meant making them feel what they made me feel. Now I know the truth. Revenge is simply living well, better, freer, lighter, while they drown in the mess they created. So if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, by your own blood, by your best friend, by the person who swore they'd never hurt you, listen to me. Peace is the loudest revenge, and the sweetest kind of victory is silence.